G'day everyone, I'm Ian. Welcome to Sydney Harbour. Obviously you can see the Sydney Opera House behind me, the Sydney Harbour Bridge. Here we are on Eora Nation, as we say here in Australia. It's where the original first fleet landed behind me, just behind the bridge. The sun's setting, so it's not catching very well. So the first fleet landed just behind me there, and then walked up the road. And I'll show you a flag in a minute where the first flag was planted. The Opera House is on a thing called Bennelong Point, and Bennelong is named after one of the very first Australians that befriended the first governor of New South Wales, and his wife was named Barangaroo, and that area over there with the skyscrapers is named after her. So forevermore they're named after a couple of first Australians. Obviously the Sydney Harbour Bridge everyone knows really well, and this is really one of the best spots for New Year. So what I'm going to do is going to take you around and show you around Sydney and my working day and what I do. So you can see I'm in a shirt, so let's go around. I'll give you one last look at the Opera House. Everyone loves the Opera House. I'll give you some facts on it as well while we're looking at it. It's 50 years old this year. It took 20 or 30 years to build. It was massively over budget. Massively over budget. And in the end they had to do a lottery to help fund it. And people are very excited when they go to it, as you could just hear from the person passing by a minute ago. So, bridge, Opera House. I'm flying around and I'm ducking and diving because they're flying around everywhere as these massive seagulls that run this neck of the woods. They're bloody dangerous, as we say here. So, off we go. I'll go and take you to the rocks, which is just behind me over here. Let me just try and get my bearings. Just there. And the rocks was where the first settlements, when everyone got off the boats, came to. So let me go and show you a few sites there. We're off. Bye. Just very quickly, here you go. Here are the masters of Circular Quay. They're all lined up here. Let me just go that way. There's one there, one there, one there. They're all waiting for food and chips and everything like that. They're huge. They take on their own, and you have to duck and dive and save. There's one flying around my head now. So yeah, the seagulls of Circular Quay. So I'm off to work now. Firstly, just those of you of a certain age will recall these things. There you go. We have trams here in Sydney. So here's one going by me on the way into the city. And then I'm heading to a really, really tall building. You can just see behind the trams, behind the lines. It's called World Square. And that's where my offices are. So let's go and head there. And I'll show you what I do. You can see the taller building a little bit clearer now. So that thing there. Let's go to work. Got coffee. Let's go. Okay, so here I am at work, and this is behind me the wall where all the celebrities sign, and then behind that is the studios. So we'll just walk this way, and the sales guys are all behind me. They make all the sales. So a little bit more studios just here. I'll just run down the stairs and show you. So that's traditional radio, for those of you that remember that. And then we're heading down this way. I've got to be quiet because somebody's recording. I'm just here. That's podcast studios, so they're recording some podcasts at the moment. That's my work. Bye. So sorry for all the noise. There's rush hour here. There's a tram going by, there's cars going by, there's people going by at the traffic lights. The interesting thing here is this is the Queen Victoria building, and here's a picture, or here's a statue of Queen Victoria. Shipped over from Ireland about 100 years ago, just shortly after the Revolution. All the people in Dublin used to throw rotten fruit at her, and they wanted to get rid of it, the Irish did, so they shipped it over here to Australia. And so here it sits. And then just round the corner is something else that's really, really interesting. So this is all outside the Queen Victoria building here in the city, and I'll show you the interesting thing. So here is the water statue of Queen Victoria's dog. And what happens is, during the course of the day, people get to throw money in there, and it comes up with a little barky thing. And there's a stone here from Ireland as well that you can rub for luck. So it's all part of Ireland here, this little bit of Sydney. So yeah, that's that. Bye. So I've taken you down now to one of my favourite parts of the city. We're down by Circular Quay, that's just behind me. That's where the bridge in the Opera House, that you know very well, is, and you saw earlier on. Now, why it's my favourite part of the city is just about here. Back in 1788, they raised the Union Jack for the very first time here in Sydney. to this day, the Union Jack still is raised here in Sydney. So there it is, just outside this building. So anytime I want to come down and get a little slice of home, the Union Jack's just here for me to look at and get a little something as I go by, just to wind up the Aussies. So where I am right now is a place called Niagara Falls, and it's in the rocks. It's a very, very narrow alleyway, probably like I can touch it from one side to the other, and it's where a lot of the press gangs were. They'll club people over the head and then take the people to the harbour, which is just behind me. So you can see it over my shoulder. Lots of tourists coming in this direction. God, they get everywhere now COVID's gone. So I'll just show you one other thing as I climb up the steps. You can still see the tourists behind me. Typical, isn't it, when you try and do something? So, just up here in a courtyard is... We're just walking towards it. That is one of the very first wells that they had here in Sydney. So it was one of the very first water sources in 1788. When the convicts came here, and these were all tents and farms and everything like that. And so yeah, the convicts built that. So it's one of the only bits probably around here of convict history. Right, good news, I've managed to shake off the tourists, and what you can see behind me is Sydney's and Australia's very, very, very first street lamp. It's a gas-powered street lamp that still flickers, as you can see to this very day. It is actually gas that's driving it. It's not some fake flame or anything like that. So that's here in the rocks as well. It's a lovely little bit of history that they keep here. So behind me here, you can see the cut. If you ignore the new roof on the cut, this was a big block of stone in the middle of Sydney that stopped one side of Sydney, where the settlers first landed, from the other. And what they wanted to do is they wanted to cut through it. So if you come to the wall now to this very day, if I just point at it, you can just see these grooves all the way down the marks. That was done by convicts with picks hammers, cutting through this big slab of stone 250 years ago. So again, another little piece of historical original Sydney. It's a lovely little piece here. So here we are in the rocks, and I've got an interesting tale to tell you. I've got two interesting tales to tell you. So firstly, we are standing right by the youth hostel, and the interesting thing about the youth hostel is when they were building it, they were doing some archaeology, and they found a whole load of ruins and foundations from First Fleet buildings, and for the couple of 100 years, or no, maybe 100 years after that. So what they had to do when they built the youth hostel is, you might not be able to see it clearly here, but they had to build it on stilts. So there's the youth hostel up above my head, and there's all the archaeology. Now, the interesting fact I've got to tell you is about a guy that used to live here, right here, and this used to be a butcher back in the day, in the early 1800s. And the guy's name was a guy named George Cribb. Now, George Cribb was on one of the first fleets and was brought over here. And when he came over here, he came on his own. He was married, but he came on his own. Now, when he was settling here, he butcher, made loads of money, and what he did is he married again without divorcing his first wife. Now, first wife in the UK found out that George was very wealthy and jumped on a boat to come over here. Came over here, George got to find out about it when she was on the way over. George dumps second wife, throws all of his jewellery and all of his plates and everything like that down the well just here, which was found a couple of 100 years later. There's the well. And yeah, up to very recently, it used to be very polluted because he also used to do the carcasses and throw them in there as well. So yeah, an interesting little tale of George and what he got up to many years ago. So this is the other side of Susanna Place. It's, as you can see, some gorgeous old terraces. Must be very evocative of times gone by. There's a little corner shop on the end, and each one of the buildings reflects a certain period in history. And obviously they're museums now. So they're lovely to walk through and go through and get a little slice of Australian history. So I'm in a place in the rocks now called Susanna Place, and it's a heritage listed of how the buildings used to be in days gone by. So there's a couple of like really old buildings that they restore, and they've got, I'll show you the front of them in a minute. The interesting fact of what you're looking at right behind me here is a dunny, as we say here in Australia. So it's an outside toilet, and there they are. Still restored, still working, I understand. So yeah, a little bit of Australian slang for you, dunny. So we're still in the rocks now, and what does every good garrison need that's looking after a bunch of convicts? I need a church. And so here's the Garrison Church, made out of sandstone, one of the original buildings here in the rocks, and still stands, and one of the most popular venues to get married in. And just so that you can get your bearings, at the end of this street, you can just about see the harbour bridge. There you go, just behind those trees. So I hope you've really had a great time coming around and hanging around with me from Sydney. We've gone from one end of town to the other. We're down at the far end now, a place called Observatory Hill. It's the hill overlooking the Sydney Harbour Bridge. And as you can see there, it's a very popular place to come for sunset, as you can see. So that's it for your little tour guide of Sydney. Hope you had a lovely time. I hope you really enjoyed it. Hope you have a lovely day. There's lots of Australian treats hopefully kicking around for you, and it's been my pleasure to show you my home city. Lots of love to you all. Have a great day.